Hey, welcome to another episode of Homeschool, the Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Lance Trezona. Today, I've got two guests joining me. First time I'm having two people on at the same time. I've got Sean Daly and Brandon Thomas. Both of them are, I met through Sub 2, and we're going to be talking about wholesaling. So we're going to deep dive into that. If you guys have any questions about any other real estate or any other thing pertaining to real estate that you might be interested in, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section of wherever you're seeing this at, either on Facebook, YouTube Live, or maybe even LinkedIn. I'm not too sure. But anyways, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Sean and Brandon. Hey, guys, how you doing?
Good.
Hey,
man.
doing well.
Dude, first off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for giving me some of your time and some of your energy today. And, maybe even, spreading a little knowledge to some of the people out here watching. Dude, I greatly appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for, taking your time to put this on for others and just to help people. Like, I think that's kind of a great way to reach out to the community and be real, raw, and authentic. So it's awesome.
Yeah, man. Hey, Yvonne, how you doing? Thanks for joining us on the show. I appreciate that. Yeah. So, anyways, guys, I'm gonna start with you, Sean, because you're in my top right corner there.
Okay.
So, tell us how you got started in real estate, man, and maybe a little bit about what you were doing before and how you found it.
I was doing hospitality before, and I kind of always felt my free time. I would be looking at houses on Zillow and just kind of looking at things like, oh, that's a good deal or this or that, and kind of doing different things. And I'd taken some time off, just switching careers. And a buddy of mine here in San Diego has been doing he was doing the BRRRR strategy, and he was fixed up a couple properties, and I kind of just went over there, was volunteering my time with him. And in the background, I would hear Bigger Pockets and different podcasts and things. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And then and obviously my phone was listening too. So Pace Morby would show up on my phone and different things like that. And I was like, I think I'm just going to make the dive. And I thought about doing the real estate route. And I was like, I just don't feel like that's for me. It's not what I want to be doing. And then so I joined Sub 2. And then from there, it's just kind of been a rocket ship of knowledge and meeting people, learning new things. And it's honestly just been an upward trajectory ever since. So, yeah.
So how many years have you been on your real estate journey now, man?
Oh, not even a full year.
Not even a full year.
Yeah. I think I signed up for Sub 2 at Thanksgiving, and the whole community was shut down for Thanksgiving break. So I didn't actually start until December or whatever. And I joined a team. I think I looked at it was 12/16, so December 16th. I met with a couple mastermind students. A shout out to Luciano and Luis for putting on the team that I'm on. Like, it's the visionary and the integrator, and what they put together is just, and what they've taught me, there's not a chance I could have done any of this by myself. Like, you know, it's also difficult too when you're like getting into a new thing and then somebody DMs you and like, hey, I'm doing a team and I want you to join. You're like, all right, who is this person and what's really about? You know, you get skeptical. And I was, but at the same time, I thought about like, okay, so there's a lot of things that I don't know. So what's the best way for me? That's joining a team, and that's being around somebody else and other individuals that have more experience. And, you know, it's that kind of a mentality that really got things going, because to me, it was just being an action taker. You know, I'd sat at the sidelines for a long time in a sense of like not knowing what I wanted to do. And when I pulled the trigger, it was just go time. Like, all right, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to go all at it. So for people that are not in sub 2, there's a thing called the nightly dial. And that's basically where everybody gets together. There's hundreds of people. I think when I did it, there was like 400 people in the Zoom, and they give you phone numbers just to cold call people. I didn't know what I was doing. I just rose my hand. I was like, what am I doing here? And I went for it, and I just made calls. And it was after that I got a DM from Luciano that just said, hey, dude, I'm starting a team and I want you on it. So it was like, okay, well, sure, let's talk about it. And, you know, so grateful that I did, because it put me in such a better standing with just everything and seeing how it goes. It wasn't easy, you know, a lot of learning curves. So those that are just getting started, it's one of those things where, you know, it's a long game. It's not just overnight things. It's a lot of follow-up, a ton of follow-up, and a lot of no's, a lot of FU's, and, you know, you just got to kind of roll with the punches. The thing is it may not be for everybody, right? That's a given. So figuring out like who we could help and what we can do and how we can make some money while doing it. So there's so many different avenues with like wholesaling and sub 2 and real estate investing. Like I'm so glad I didn't go the real estate agent route, because golly, I would just be pigeonholed. This one, I've learned so much, and I have conversations with attorneys about this stuff, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm really getting this. You know what I mean? And like being able to talk to brokers and talking with agents and doing different things, it's really cool to have that kind of a like, you know, knowledge and being able to understand something so well that most people, you know, if they don't know about it, like what does Dad say? Dad says a confused mind will always say no. Right. So if someone doesn't really understand something, they're going to be, no, that's not for me. So half of my job to people is just explaining and relationship.
Yeah.
Whether that be with the seller or whether that be with an agent, you know, it's a lot of education.
Dude, before I move on to Brandon, bro, did you say what you did before real estate? Like,
I was in hospitality.
Hospitality. Okay, yeah. Cool, man. I just didn't know if everybody got that or if I just happened to missed it, but I just want to make sure you guys knew. Hospitality, not real estate. So not real estate, totally something different. And he's been on his real estate journey for not even a year, he said, dude. So I mean, there you go, guys. All right, so down to Brandon Thomas. Brandon, so tell us what you were doing before real estate, how you got into real estate, dude, and how long you've been on your journey for.
Yeah, for sure. So before real estate, I was just in the military. I was a Marine Corps Osprey pilot. So I was flying the aircraft that take off like a helicopter, fly like an airplane. So it's like a little transformer type of thing. So that was actually a pretty cool journey. So I guess taking it way back, my first duty station, I bought my first house, and that was just through the VA loan. Before then, I tried to buy, but I think it was the universe telling me that I wasn't ready for it. So before I hit my first duty station, I was doing a lot of flight training. So that flight training ranged from anywhere from 4 months to about 12 months. And it wasn't really enough time for me to actually understand like what was going on in the environment, like what was the best way for me to, or what was the best location for me to buy a house so that it rents properly. I didn't even understand how to comp. I didn't even understand what comping was or how to analyze the deal or like how to analyze anything. So when I tried to actually buy, I was actually moving from that duty station to another one. And for some reason, it didn't work out. The deal fell through. So I think that was just the universe telling me, hey, you're not ready yet. Do some more research, because my mind state was fully focused on flight training, like understanding how to actually fly an aircraft. Because before Osprey, you're flying single engine airplanes, you're flying dual engine airplanes, you're flying helicopters. Each one of these platforms requires an entirely new set of understanding of emergency procedures, an entirely new set of just cockpitology, right? So it's like you have switches on the left side, switches on the right side, and then you switch platforms. And now sometimes they could be completely opposite, or they do different functions, right? So it's like you need to be completely engaged, because every single day that you go into the squadron, you're going to get tested. So my mind state was fully on flying. So I didn't really do too much research on real estate. But I was around people, normally officers in the Marine Corps are the ones who are flying. So those are the ones that are always studious. Those are the college kids, right? They're always talking about, hey, just buy a house here, buy a house here, buy a house here, buy a house here. I'm the type of person to actually do a lot of research before I pull the trigger. So when I was going through each duty station, I had to convince myself, is this the right spot to actually buy a house? And a couple of these places were complete no-goes. I'm glad I didn't buy a house in these areas. But some of them were actually really good spots, but I decided not to pull the trigger. When I finally hit my first duty station, which was in Camp Pendleton in Oceanside, California, that's when I actually bought it using the VA loan. I figured I was going to be here for 4 years. And I was like, okay, this is a good spot. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I could use this. And I was thinking future-wise, well, in case everything goes to crap and I end up homeless, at least I have this house that I could actually rent out the other 2 rooms and actually make these mortgage payments. So that was what was going on in my mind. That's really where my real estate journey started, was buying this house. So fast forward 6 months, I go over on deployment, and I'm realizing I'm still getting paid by the Marine Corps, but my house is vacant. And I'm one to like stress out about properties. Like, I mean, I'm into this about $300,000 in debt. Obviously, it's not my money, leveraging the bank's money for this, but I had like heart palpitations thinking about an empty house that wasn't going to get rented. The lawn wasn't going to get mowed. Nobody's taking care of anything. So if there was like a rat infestation or a termite infestation or whatever crazy things happen, I wasn't going to be there to supervise it, or nobody was going to be there. So I decided, you know what? Before I leave, I need to get a property manager so I could get somebody in this place. And I got one last minute, luckily, right before I shipped off. So I didn't even have a tenant lined up yet. So a month goes by, she's cleaning it up, and I'm seeing like the bills rack up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you got to clean everything. Like you have to do all this stuff. They're like, yeah, this is the only way we're going to have to rent it out. So I'm like stressing out. Like a month goes by, a month and a half goes by. And they said, yeah, well, I mean, now we're only you're going to come back in 6 months. So a month and a half into that, we're looking at 4.5 months. Nobody's going to rent for 4.5 months. So now I'm like stressing out even more. And then on the 4th, like at the end of the 2nd month, she finally finds a traveling nurse who's willing to stay in the property. And I'm like, all right, cool, we're good. And that person just so happens to leave as soon as I get back. But during that time frame while I'm on deployment, I'm keeping my money. And at the same time, I'm getting paid. It wasn't really like a large cash flow. I think the spread was only maybe like $200. So I'm actually probably negative cash flow, but it's way better than just paying everything out of pocket. So I had that going on. And I was like, this is actually really good. I like how this worked out. Like I had a property manager. She did everything. I'm completely overseas right now. I'm in the Middle East at this point, and she's taking care of everything. I'm like, even though this isn't 100% passive, I like where this is going. So I come back and I'm like, I need to look a little bit more into this. But how do I buy another house if I've already used a VA loan? And obviously, like there's a lot more education that I've learned where I could actually buy a second house. So I'm like, what is another way? So then I actually went on to a lot of podcasts thinking, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? The first guy I actually ever found, his name was DeRay Olalier. He's the person who actually introduced me to creative financing. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Let me look more into that. Because I would love to buy a house without using my own money, right? Or put very little down. So I studied him, went to some of his mentorship classes and courses and stuff like that, got a lot of education, but it still wasn't enough for me to actually close. But that's when I actually first started cold calling. And I talked to people for the first time, and Lance, let me tell you, I've flown planes, I've flown inverted, I've dogfight them. I mean, I've been in some crazy scenarios, but cold calling somebody that I've never spoken to before, I don't see their face, I don't know their reactions, and I'm calling somebody about their property saying, hey, do you want to sell it? I've never been more scared in my life. Like, I could tell you, like, it would be a 2-minute long conversation, and I felt like it lasted for 2 hours. So I get off the phone, like my hands are trembling. I'm like, you could feel like my voice quiver. It was insane, but it took a lot of getting used to. Like it's definitely a comfort zone that I had to push past because this was completely something that I was never taught to do. Right. So fast forward. Just like Sean was talking about, I learned about bigger pockets. Through bigger pockets, I learned about pace. And that's when I really learned about creative financing. And then since then, I started connecting more and more to people who are in sub 2 and just having like real conversations with them. Like, okay, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I think my real education boosted when I finally started going up to real estate meetups. And then from there, the rest is history.
Dude, okay, so I want to come in because there's a lot to unpack. But first off, Brandon, dude, I know that you ride motorcycles. I know that you fly, right? And so, do you play beach volleyball? Because you could be like a real life maverick, bro. Or something.
Yeah, I mean, every Sunday I go out with my shirt off. I have my dog tags waving in the wind. Gotta do one of those slow motion finger pointers. Yeah, it's an average Sunday,
Yeah, no joke. So anyway, guys, I just want to unpack some of the stuff that I was taking notes as Sean and Brandon were talking. So first off, I just want to let you guys know. We're not, I don't know if you heard any, like throughout our conversation right now in the beginning when they were sort of introducing them, but none of us have like $1 million. We're not like loaded people. Like we're not rich or anything like that. We're just average people who found real estate as the catalyst to, make our dreams come true of obtaining financial freedom and getting our time back. And if you listen to both their stories and mine too, it all started with educating ourselves. Like whether that's reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, finding bigger pockets, which is a great forum for anybody out there that wants to get into real estate and take a deep dive down the rabbit hole. And through that, it's just, you start learning, you start educating yourself, you start picking up the verbiage, the lingo, reaching out on forums, finding like about, landlord tenant issues, stuff like that, like rentals, how to do all that stuff, you guys. So, I mean, education is key. Sean threw out BRRRR, which is BRRRR, and it just stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. It's a strategy that real estate people use, and it's basically, pretty much buying a property, fixing it up, renting it out, refinancing it, getting your money back, and then repeating the cycle. That's what that is. And I also like what Sean said about the team, because real estate is, everybody tries it on their own. Like I know I did, Sean did, I think Brandon did, in the beginning, but real estate is really a team sport, guys. Like you cannot go as far by yourself as you can go together. So, I mean, it is a team sport. And I think Sean mentioned action taking, and that's a big one. I mean, you have to take action. You have to get out there and make mistakes, because one, you're never going to be perfect in real estate investing or anything that you start off trying to do in your life, right? Like it takes repetition, it takes practice, it takes, it takes many times of doing something and failing at it to get better and better and better at it. So action taking is definitely a must in this game. And also real estate is not a get rich quick thing. It is not. It is a long game. I mean, because you got to build, and you got to build capital, you got to build your team, you got to build your portfolio. I mean, it takes some time to get to where you want to get to and do the things that you want to do. And the last thing I will say is your circle. Like Sean was talking about meeting other people in the sub 2 community and sort of getting to talk to them on a different level. And I mean, it's like that saying, you are the 5 people that you hang around the most. So, I mean, you definitely want to level up with the people that you have around you, because you want to talk money, you want to talk business. I used to think talking money was taboo, like I never mentioned it before. Now I don't care. Yeah, I want to talk about it, because that's the only way you're going to learn and you're going to grow and you're going to get to that level where you want to get to. All right. So with that being said, let's get into wholesaling, guys, because here's my question to you guys, right? And I think, because I talked to you guys a little bit about when we were going through the technical kind of stuff before we started the show to make sure all the mics worked and stuff. I want to know from you guys, what is the best way to get started in real estate? And so I'll answer last, because I already know what my question is, or my answer is, and I told you guys my answer. So if one of you take it, I'm going to be pissed. But no, anyways, so I'll start with Brandon first. Brandon, what do you think the best way to get started into real estate is, man?
Honestly, I mean, like, there's a lot of ways, but I think the best way to get started is talking to people. Brent Daniels says it the best. Mr. TTP is just talking to people. So if you're interested in real estate, you should probably just hang around people who are doing real estate. Obviously, real estate is a huge spectrum. You could be a private money lender. You could be a wholesaler. You could be a buy and hold investor. You could be a short-term rental person. But whatever your niche is, or whatever you want to do, you should hang out with those people. And then from that point, you'll have the experience offhand. Like, you don't have to go on YouTube and figure out, okay, maybe this is the best strategy for me, or maybe you could do that. Like, you could supplement it that way for sure. But at the same time, if you were just in that environment, you're going to avoid so many pitfalls and so many, they call it the shiny object syndrome, right? Where you have different strategies that are going to take your mind off of what your true goal is, right? So if you hang around the people that are doing the things that you want to do, they'll give you tips and tricks, there you go, on how to actually navigate the process. And I think that's the best advice that I would give to somebody who's starting out.
Nice, man. That's solid advice. That's solid advice. Sean, what about you, man?
Yeah, that was great advice. I think one of my big things is, just taking that first step for anything that you ever want to do. If there's something that intrigues you, take the first step towards it, right? As you get closer, you figure it out. Brandon nailed it. There's so many different aspects to real estate. And if you're not around all the people and seeing what's really going on, you're just viewing from the sidelines, you're not going to be up close and personal and seeing that everybody that's at a real estate meetup is not just a bunch of agents talking to each other. Like you said, there's private money lenders. There's so many different avenues to kind of be in it. The wholesale aspect, you could be doing short terms, or you could just be looking for fix and flips. You could be an agent. You could be all sorts of different things. And there's so many different areas. I meet a lot of people at meetups that I always ask, is this your first time? And it's kind of like being like, I don't know, like just being out with these people and figuring out like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. And it's just like, I'm just so glad that you decided to come, because I was in those shoes before I even joined or did anything with real estate. I went to meetups. I just wanted to go and see what was going on. And it was like more or less window shopping to kind of like, what area do I really want to go? What are these people doing? And then obviously, you know, you always kind of figure out like who's looking successful and like, you know, but sometimes all the dudes with the big money, they're not the best dressed. You know what I mean? So it's like never judge a book by its cover. And that's something that you learn real quick. Probably the person with the most money in the room is doing the least amount of talking. They're just listening and they're figuring out who's doing what. So, you know, there's so many different things. So just a little helpful tip out there.
Dude, nice, bro. Nice. I will say, okay, so I'll say this. For me, besides educating yourself and you know, getting to meetups, I think that the easiest way to get started into real estate, and I think the best way to get started into real estate is becoming a lender. Like if you have money that you're sitting on in a bank account or in a 401k and you want to get into real estate, you leverage somebody else's experience. Because it's the easiest way that you can get behind the scenes, learn either how to fix and flip if that's what you're interested in, learn how to do a midterm rental, maybe set up a whole Airbnb process. Because if you're coming in, you can set yourself up as a partner in the deal and stuff like that. You know, I mean, you can you know, talk terms and say, hey, part of what I want to do besides just lend this money is I want to learn all the, like what you use for software, how you set up the property, like what your shopping list is, you know, and, you know, you might end up taking a little bit less interest percentage on your return, but in the long run, you're like speed tracking that whole learning process, basically. Like you are fast tracking yourself to get to that next part. So I think that for me is one of probably the easiest ways to do it. So if you do have some, you know, cash lying around, like hit up a real estate meetup, you know, listen to people talk about what deals they're doing, what they're currently have in the pipeline. And in all honesty, like real estate meetups aren't just for real estate professionals, like, or real estate investors. Like it's for, you know, Bobby Joe down the street who, you know, is working a W-2 job, but might want to just do something, you know, different or, you know, improve their quality of life a little bit. And they don't want to invest in like stocks because it's too risky, or they don't want to just make the 3% from a savings account. They want to make more. So, you know, go out and meet your partner at the next real estate meetup, you know, and there are people that are bringing deals to real estate meetups. I know I host one. Brandon and Sean both attend the Ales and Assets meetup, among many others in San Diego County. And dude, they're there for you guys too. Like, so head out there and do it. All right, man. So basically that's sort of the easiest way. But now let's talk about what is wholesaling real estate. So I'm going to I'll go ahead, Sean. I'll let you start off on what is wholesaling real estate, because you sort of dabbled into a little bit in your introduction. So,
well, I mean, it's a great way to kind of get in real estate, in my opinion, at least, because you learn a lot of skills. Like you're learning how to talk with sellers, you're learning how to talk with buyers, you're getting to see both aspects because, in a sense, you're the middleman. You're connecting the two. We utilize wholesaling on deals that we're not going to take down on our team. And it's a good way because we're doing creative deals. So one, maybe just, you know, doing sub 2 deals. It takes some education for certain agents and going through it and being able to get this and talk with sellers and get the deal locked up. And it may not be a deal for me or my team, but we know buyers who it might be. Like they have a different business model than us. And we would basically just take our first contract with the sellers and assign it over to an end buyer for a fee.
Yeah, no. And I'll say this too. I'm going to jump in before I go to Brandon, because I want to say in the simplest term, what wholesaling real estate is you're out there finding a property, and when you find the property, you put it under contract. Once you have it under contract, you look for a buyer to assign it to. You're not selling it because you don't own the property. What you do is you you have a contract, right? You have a contract with the buyer. So you're looking for somebody to assign that contract to. And the way that you make money off of it is called an assignment fee. That could range anywhere from $1,000 to $60,000, depending on how good you lock up a deal, right? So yeah, so basically that's in the simplest terms what wholesaling is. So go ahead, Brandon, like take it, man.
Yeah, you guys pretty much said everything. I guess my take on it is, in addition to what you guys already said, is pretty much taking an asset and negotiating with the seller to manipulate it and mold it so that it's attractive to the buyer, right? Because you could do a cash sale and buy a property for cheap and then add your assignment fee, like Lance was talking about, onto it, and then give it to a flipper or an end buyer. You do it that way. Or if you want to do it creative, there's a way where you could formulate it where there's a lower down payment that's involved, where they're still paying retail price. And then maybe you're taking your assignment fee in chunks as opposed to all up at once. So you're just like negotiating with the seller, finding a way to make it more attractive for the buyer and more profitable for the buyer as well. So you're pretty much like the workhorse in finding deals. I say, a lot of people know it as the middleman, but it is definitely an essential piece to big business or bigger operations where they're just too time consumed with formulating deals and buying deals or whatever they need to do. So they need that other person to actually go ahead and acquire something that's actually on a discounted price or something that actually works in their favor.
Dude, it's funny because I'm interested to hear your guys' stories. But when I first got started into like real estate investing, like everybody was like, you start in wholesaling. You like it's no money down, or it's little out of pocket, I should say. That's what they're saying. Like if you don't have a lot of capital, you can start in wholesaling, build your capital up and all that other stuff, right? But most of the people that I talked to made wholesaling sound easy. Made wholesaling sound so easy. And it's like, oh, hell, man, I'm only going to have to do wholesaling for like a month and a half before I see my first deal come in. Bullshit, my God, bullshit. Dude, wholesaling is hard as hell, man. It is hard as hell. And I love Brandon's story because like he was talking about cold calling people. Like, wholesaling is basically cold calling or door knocking or pulling lists. Basically, that's how you find leads. And I'm with you, man. My first call, I was scared shitless, dude. I was like, dude, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know his reaction. I'm just calling up somebody saying, hey, do you want to sell me your house, man? I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, it was crazy, dude. It was crazy. So did you guys, like, when you first started, were you thinking the same thing? Like, oh, people are making wholesaling sound like it's going to be easy. I'm going to find lots of deals.
Well, I mean, like, listen to all the podcasts. It sounds like it's going to be like the easiest thing ever, right? Because like they only bring on the heavy hitters, right? Oh yeah, I mean, I thought it was hard, but 3 weeks later, I got my first deal, and it turned out to be a $50,000 check. And then like their next guest would be the same way. Oh yeah, well, it took me a little bit longer than most. I mean, 2 months in, and then I got my first $60,000 check. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I mean, these people are normal people just like you and me. So I feel like I'm a little bit elevated. So it should only take me a couple weeks, right? And it is relentless. You are calling, you are following up, like Sean was talking about. Like you constantly have to hear a lot of no's, a lot of FUs. You have to have a lot of mental resilience to continue going, because it's simple, but it's not easy.
No, not easy. Sean?
It was like getting closer to like doing stuff, and then you realize, all right, so we'll pull a list of 5,000 people, and we're gonna get like maybe a couple yeses. You're like, wait, what? Like that's how many people you gotta go? But yeah, those big dogs that are swinging for the fences. It's a different business model. They're paying to play, and they're paying for better like inbound leads, as we like to call them, where people are actively looking to sell versus doing a cold call. There's different aspects to wholesaling and how you're getting your leads and who you're talking to. And those guys that make it seem easy, have a little different strategy where those leads are coming to them, as opposed to most people just starting out and doing the cold calls. So there's a lot of different variations, but
yeah, and wholesaling too is a business model. Like people out there like base their whole business on just wholesaling. Like they don't do anything else. They just wholesale, and they have a massive team that they have cold calling people, reaching out to people. It's called acquisitions. They're acquiring properties. And then they have a team that just dispose the properties. So they look for buyers to buy these. And it's a whole system that flows. When you're first starting out, 10-to-1 odds, you're a single lone soldier out there trying to wholesale. And if that is you, and that's sort of how you're starting out or thinking about starting out, I from my experiences, I will say this, and you guys can chime in at any time here. I will say that when I first started wholesaling, man, I went all in. I bought list. I spent money on list. I spent money on a triple dialer, which is basically it's a dial machine that you throw a list into, and it dials 3 numbers at a time and connects you with whoever answers, right? I spent money on direct mail. I spent money on well, you got to skip trace all the leads that you pull. So, you're spending money there too. I mean, dude, I went all in, and I gave it like a good 4 months of just going all in like that. And all of a sudden I just kept on seeing my bank account deplete. And I wasn't seeing anything come back. And so fast forward to where I'm at now. I don't wholesale anymore because for me, it's just not something I'm passionate about. But I do still cold call, and there's a difference though. But if I was gonna do wholesaling again, I would start out with driving for dollars.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely start out with driving for dollars, and maybe even door knocking if you've got the balls to go knock on some doors and ask people if they're interested in selling the house. So I mean, those would be the 2 areas that I would start before even just pulling lists, before even doing any of that stuff, because that's just your time that you're spending. You're not spending money, and you could actually pull a list of like 50 houses that you just drove by, and you skip trace those 50 houses. I mean, it might cost you maybe like $5, something like that, to skip trace 50 houses. I forget what the cents is per skip now, but yeah. What is it?
So somewhere in there. It's like 8 cents to 12 cents, 15 cents sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, so 7 to 9 today is what I was seeing.
Yeah. So basically, there you go. And, you could call on your cell phone, just each one of those numbers. So, I mean, if I was to start off in wholesaling again, that is how I would do it. How about you guys, man?
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways to do it. You just have to be creative. So if you have a lot of time, definitely go driving for dollars. And the reason why that's so effective is because you get to see firsthand, especially if you're trying to like flip a property or get a lot of equity in something, you'll see firsthand like the dilapidated properties. So when I skip trace, for example, or when I actually find properties, sometimes it's through the software PropStream, and it will tell you, okay, this property will have X, Y, and Z criteria. And you just have to go on faith that that's accurate. But if you're driving for dollars, you could actually look at a property itself and say, okay, yeah, this actually kind of fits that. Or yeah, if you have the balls, you could just go ahead and knock on their door and say, hey, is there a problem here that I could fix for you? Yeah, you could skip trace on PropStream going through lists. So you could have low equity, you could have high equity, you could have divorces, probates, a whole lot of stuff that you could do. You could also do direct to agent, right? So sometimes if you don't have the money, you could just build a good relationship with the agent, and then sometimes they'll feed you deals, and then that could be like an ongoing system as well. So as opposed to like constantly searching for the next meal, you could actually have something else providing you something. But it may not be that much, but at least it's something that's in the pipeline. because the thing is, in order to have a successful business, you have to have leads, and wherever those leads are coming from, that's what you got to do. So maybe go on a bike ride, ride for deals, right? Or maybe you're talking to a lot of other people who may be in the business that could actually help you out. That says, okay, well, I just need a cold caller for this. So just being really, really creative, because sometimes there may be a strategy that works one season, and then the next season you have to switch. So definitely be understanding of like what the market is doing and what the environment around you is doing.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Sean?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it back to being around people. Yeah, you got to have good lists, but at the same time, I'm thinking in my head like, what is my pipeline looking like right now? And I would say about 80% of my pipeline, which is full, is JV. I am marketing myself out and talking with people and going to meetups. And it's like, hey, you want me to close some deals for you? I'll hop on the phone with them. I'll talk to the agent. I'll talk to the seller, whatever you need, and let's do it. So, I'm still getting fed, and they're getting fed at the same time. And then it becomes like repeat customers. It's like, hey, this person would be a good one for this. Hey, can you help me out with this? And so it really does, like, just getting out there and being around in the community, like talking to people, tell them what you're doing, be vocal about it, and see what you can do. In the initial part, we'd partnered up with somebody who had a couple VAs that was doing like the texting first, and then once they would qualify it, I have an awesome lead manager, and he gets on the phone and kind of verifies everything, and then it'll come to me. Like, our team is expanded. I've got some rock stars on the team, and they're doing different things, and everybody's really just doing awesome right now. So it's not even about pulling lists anymore. When we're talking creative finance and wholesale, we're going direct to agent. We're going sniping on Privy or Zillow or whatever, and just seeing what's on market, and trying to figure out, just shoot for like low equity situations. So it's not, you don't have to be paying for a list. You could simply go on Zillow and just shoot out offers. 2 of my guys are doing 25 offers a day. Hard work. We do comping sessions pretty much every morning for about 45 minutes. We'll throw out a bunch of addresses, comp it together, and then make sure we're all on point. And then they get going through their day. They'll crank through, send out offers, 25 offers a day. I'd say 1 in 5 is, turns out to be a deal, right? So, or at least a contract. And then from that, probably one of those 5 is going to be a deal. So it's just like getting things down and narrowing it down. So it's a lot of numbers, it's 250 offers a week, I think is what those 2 guys are doing right now.
Dude,
and
that's crazy.
It's a number. Hard work, man. It's crazy. So it's really cool to see that going. And every morning I'm getting up and we're starting to huddle, and it's like, Sean, I've got this. I need you to double check my numbers. Boom. Okay, cool. Let's put it under contract. Awesome.Moving this on. And like, the team is just rapidly going. Like, my day does not stop. And they say like, you're doing one thing. It's a 24/7 like 24/7 gig, right? When the phone rings, that's money. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm sorry, I got to get this so that I could, provide for a better life down the long road. So.
Dude, to go back, you said 250 offers a week.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, for those out there watching, dude, that's an insane amount of offers per week. I mean, when I don't know if you guys tried comping a property yourself, but when you're starting out, comping a property could maybe take you anywhere from 40 minutes to maybe even 2 hours plus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so when you and to make an offer, you need to know what you're offering. So you need to comp these properties. So it blows my mind, because I'm like 250 properties that you've comped. And so if you do 250, like each property, you're probably getting 3 different comps per property, right?
Yeah.
So,
going through it, when we set up our, like, in huddle is what we call it, right? We do our huddle in the morning.
Like a team huddle, bro? Like you're in football or something? Okay,
exactly.
Cool, dude.
We'll set a timer, and everyone should be done within, like, hey, let's do this in like 6 minutes. So everybody rushes to kind of go through it, right? So with me saying like 1 in 25 and 1 in 5, those kind of things, that's because, when they do go as fast as they do, maybe, things might not be the best. And then we have to go back and we might have to retrade. But, we're looking at things quickly. And then whenever we come back and they're like, hey, we got a signed contract, let's look at this, before we put down EMD or whatever the case may be and move forward. It's like, okay, let me just double check this, make sure that we're good. Or, if we need to back out, we back out, kind of a situation. But it's a numbers game. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of action going on. And yeah, I mean, those guys are just grinding, right? This is what they want to do. They're full-time at it, and they're just putting them out. And, the thing about it is, you can work however you want to work throughout the day. As long as at the end of the week, the KPIs are hit, key performance indicators. So that is going to, if you want to do a lot of stuff on Saturdays, or you want to do a bunch of your comping at nighttime before you go to bed and you're just like looking stuff up and you want to do this, you have it all lined up for the next day. You hit the next morning, you crank out all those offers, send them off in the morning. You go to the beach, go do whatever you want to do. Like, that's how they're tracked on their numbers. So, they'll go to the gym, they still go do their other stuff and come back and, just however they want to prioritize their day.
Dude, I got a question, and both of you guys can answer this one, because you said that it's all about people now. Like it's about you getting out there, talking to people and stuff like that. Like, how do you find those people, man? Like, I know when I first started going out, like, I would hit up Facebook wholesale groups, stuff like that. And meetups. But is there any other like avenues that you use to come into contact with peeps?
For real estate or for private money lenders?
No, for wholesaling, man. Like because you're looking for deals. Like, I know you're reaching out direct to agent, but you're also like, looking for other deals as well. Direct to agent isn't your only avenue.
Yeah. I'd say my bread and butter, really. I mean, I'm a chameleon, right? I can talk. I have a hospitality background. I used to talk to people for a living, right? So it's no problem for who I'm talking to or whatever. As you could probably tell from this podcast, I like to talk. So it's just one of those things, right? Where I like direct to seller because there's no middleman. I really want to know what's going on and how like we can make something happen, what avenue to choose, because there's a lot of like qualifying and disqualifying kind of questions when it comes down to looking at a deal. Like, is this going to be a good one for a creative route versus a cash offer? What are we looking at here, and that kind of thing. So I like just being direct to seller just for those reasons. But direct to agent is a way for us to utilize a lot more creative finance.
And I will say this, that direct to agent, it's not easier, but you already know those people are looking at selling their house. Like, you don't have to ask them if they want to sell their house because it's already listed. It's on the market. You already know they want to sell their house. Your job is to find out why they want to sell the house, and if you can help the real estate agent get it off their books. So yeah. And I personally like direct to seller because I don't like dealing with agents. And I still hunt down my own deals because I drive for dollars, and I'm looking for fix and flip opportunities for myself. And so I'm out there driving for dollars and cold calling direct to sellers and stuff like that. But I'll hop on the MLS. I'll hop on Zillow and check some properties out too. I'm not against that, but it is easier when you go direct to seller for sure. Brandon, how are you finding your leads, man? How are you running your show? Because I know, like, listening to Sean, he's part of a massive team. He's one of those big guns making big time moves over there. And I think you're more the solo adventurer, right?
Yeah. So I'm more following that solo route, which, I mean, especially after everything that we've discussed, is not the right way to go. Being a part of the team is definitely the way to go. I've just had a couple of circumstances where I've just constantly been moving, so I can't dedicate myself to a team, especially with dedicated hours. Because when you're working with a team, it all depends on the team. But my thing is, with a team, you definitely want to give them the amount of hours that they're looking for. So if you're promising 2 hours, then definitely give them that 2 hours, because they're looking for you. You're part of the team. If one part of that chain breaks, then that system is faulted, right? So I've been more on the solo side. So what I've been doing was I've been pulling lists on PropStream, driving for dollars. But you also mentioned talking to people, right? So when I'm in the military, I don't shy away from the fact that I'm actually doing real estate. And I emphasize the fact that I'm not an agent, but there's other ways that you could like either take down or buy properties. So I've actually been voicing that out as another medium to just pulling lists, going to agents, going direct to seller and stuff like that. That was another way that I found out that I could actually reach out to other people. And that's actually how I closed my first deal. It was actually the perfect situation. When you talk about creative financing, it seemed like it just fit this mold. One of my buddies, he was about to PCS, which means a permanent change of station. He was about to move from one location to another. He was moving from 29 Palms and going over to Okinawa. And he's going to be there for at least 3 years. And he said, yeah, well, I mean, the government's paying me. I don't really need the money right now. So yeah, introduced me to like seller financing and subject to. I told him exactly what it was. And he said, okay, I'm interested. I told him to do some research about it because, I mean, it's not an illegal thing. A lot of people haven't heard of it yet. So when they haven't heard of it, they think it's illegal. But when you could actually point them to the evidence of like how credible this strategy is, they start opening up. So I gave him the tools to say whether he wants to do it or not. You never want to convince anybody to. So he came back and said, okay, yeah, no, I'm interested in this. Like, what's the next step? And that's always the best words that you want to hear. So I hooked him up with another sub-2 partner of mine. So we JV'd on this. And he talked about the structure of the terms, how it was going to work. And with this whole scenario, we gave him a down payment. We're going to pay him out for a few years every month. And then at the end of it, we're going to give him all of his money in a balloon payment. So all the equity that's remaining after the term, the length of the term, we're just going to give it right back to him. His situation fits so perfectly for this strategy that it just worked out. And I would not have gotten that if I was not vocal about like what I did as a wholesaler. So that was another way to take down properties. But for the most part, a lot of it is cold calling for me. I'll go to real estate investor meetups and I'll vocalize that as well. And then sometimes you can find somebody who's lucky enough who's maybe either oversaturated with lists, who you may be able to cold call on their behalf, especially if you're running low on funds. You don't have to skip trace these lists yourself. You could just go out to somebody else and say, hey, let me partner up with you and cold call their list. So that was another way to do it. So that's my way of actually accumulating these people to talk to.
You guys said a few things I wanted to bring up, but going back to what you were just talking about, dude, guys, you can totally reach out to somebody who's actually pulled lists, and you can just volunteer your time too. Like, you could volunteer your time, you could go through their list, you could call for them, and then insert yourself into a deal just like that as well. So it's another way of getting involved there. I honestly, dude, I think everybody starts out the lone soldier way. I know I did. But I will say I like wholesaling. I like wholesaling because it teaches you a certain set of skills. I sound like Liam Neeson from Taken. I've got a certain set of skills. But no, I mean, it does teach you like a certain set of skills because it teaches you to talk to strangers about their property. It teaches you how to talk to them, how to approach them. It makes you a little bit more comfortable picking up that phone and dialing strangers, So when you do get to the point where you're looking for deals for yourself, you're a little bit more comfortable. I know that's where I am right now. And another thing that I think you said, Brandon, and I think maybe you touched on it too, Sean, was when you're out there and you're going to these direct to sellers or direct to agents or anybody, when you're looking for properties from anybody, your first priority should be to figure out what their problem is. Why are they looking at selling their house in the first place if they are selling their house in the first place, right? Like, what is their problem? How can you help them? How can you solve them? I know Sean and I had a lengthy conversation about this like last weekend in regards to people trying to be shysters or get a little greedy out there, because there are people out there that don't have the seller's best interest at heart. And I think when you're dealing with this, because I believe it was Sean that mentioned pre-foreclosures, divorce, any of those kind of things, even like a bankruptcy, if somebody's trying to get their house out of that as well, it's a touchy situation and people are going through real problems, you know, and they're dealing with real shit in their lives. And, you don't want to be a douchebag just trying to take advantage of them. Like, you want to be a fucking good human being and help them out, And I think when you go into that, especially with our mentor, he's really all about that, like leading with kindness, and approaching these people in a way where you're actually got their best interest at heart, and stuff. So I think when you do it that way, I think you're more comfortable with talking to people about certain things and stuff like that. I mean, and there was a gentleman, I think both of you guys know him, Munif. He's part of the Sub 2 community, and I remember I was on one of the daily dials with him, and he said the most profound thing, and it really opened up my mind to how I approach people now, especially now. He said to me, "You're calling somebody up that is going through something. Why should they trust you? Mm-hmm. What are you going to tell them? Why should they open up to you?" And I really resonated with that, because in my life, I've gone through a whole bunch of shit. I've gone through bankruptcy. I've gone through divorce. I had to short sale a property. Like, I've hit a lot of real estate mistakes in my life to where it's gotten to me now. I mean, so for me, it's important that I relay that kind of message to them and stuff with like that. So I don't know how you guys, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think that's one of the most important things when you're out there trying to get people to see if they want to sell their house to you, man. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you're talking about, it's really touchy. So the biggest thing is just like to stop and listen. It's like, hey, what's going on? Find what the real problem is, and then see if you can find a solution. And that solution should not be you getting money in your bank account. It definitely helps for sure if it works out that way. But like, you should think of yourself as a real estate solutionist, right? How are you going to solve their problem, whether or not it gets you paid? And sometimes, I mean, like, the universe has like its way of like repaying you back. So sometimes you could help somebody else out where there's no money in your pocket, but then at the same time, they turn around and either refer you to somebody who may be in a similar situation and say, hey, check out this guy. Or maybe they have another property where they say, hey, well, I was trying to get rid of this anyway. Thank you for helping me out. Here it is for like 40 cents on the dollar or something like that. And it's like, wow, that's awesome. Cool. Like, for example, I mean, you shouldn't be afraid to say the words, I'm not your buyer, or maybe I can't help you out with this. For example, like, sometimes they're not in a problem and they're asking for like full retail. They can hold on to the property for as long as possible. It's like, maybe not have commission breath and say, hey, we'll sell it. Because then you're just you look greedy. You look like you're just like searching for something that's not there. But when there's actually a problem, figure it out. Hey, I understand what's going on. Don't be afraid to have a second conversation with that without even explaining anything about real estate. Like, okay, I understand. I completely understand. All right, second conversation. Okay, well, how can we solve this? All right, cool. And then like just build that relationship so that they can trust you. Like Lance was talking about, like, you have to build that trust, because people are only doing business with people that they know, like, and trust. So you have to be that person that can actually be that credible source of a solution before you can actually move forward with anything.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And I don't know about you guys, but I have like a story, like, dude, like, there was this pre-foreclosure list I was calling, and this lady was going through pre-foreclosure. She was an older lady, probably in her late 60s, and she had her grandkids living with her. And this was actually in Riverside County, California. And so when she picked up the phone, she was talking to me a little bit about her situation. And I asked her, my first question is, do you want to leave your house? Like, do you want to sell it? And she's like, no, I don't want to sell it. I want to keep it. And I said, great, let's find a way for you to keep this. And I said, let's go through this. I'm like, dude, do you have somebody you can reach out to that can loan you the money to pay the arrears off? She's like, no. Okay. Do you have, can we go through a loan remod? She's like, I've already submitted the paperwork. I'm like, great, cool. She's like, but they're not getting back to me and I only have a few days left. So I went ahead and she sent me all her information. I contacted the bank people on her behalf. I was like, hey, she's trying to reach out to you. She's trying to get in touch with you. And we went on for that, like for 4 weeks. And she ended up being able to pull out her 401k from her job. They let her take some money out of it because I found out she had a retirement plan. So I was like, dude, let's look into pulling this money out to pay your arrears off. You could be your own bank. And so she did that. And they ended up paying off the house or paying off the arrears, getting it out of the foreclosure status. And now she's got herself a job. She's got the monthly income coming in to pay off the bill every month, the mortgage every month. So, and it took me about 4 weeks. I stayed in contact with her for about 3 to 4 weeks after that, just to see how she was doing. But dude, I didn't get anything out of it. Monetarily, I didn't get any monetary value out of it. I didn't get paid for that. But you know what I did? I fucking felt great about it. Like, dude, I really helped somebody out. And she was like, text messaging me and telling me her story. And I was like, dude, this is really cool, man. Like, this is really cool, Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great feeling when you could actually save somebody from a pre-foreclosure. Yeah, that's awesome. Because they come back to you, they're like, thank you. And it's like that process may not have happened. This person, without our help, would have lost their home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just asking the right questions from the get-go. What have you tried already? I mean, you already asked, like, do you want to save the house? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's go through the things. What have you tried already? And then just kind of go through that whole motion. And sometimes the situations, I always try to think about it like, what if this is my grandmother? Like, let's have grandma keep her house. Like, what do we got to do to make that happen? Right. And that's the big thing. It's just, there's a lot of people out there that aren't really doing the moral high ground. And that really gives wholesalers a bad name and a bad reputation. I'm a firm believer in the way that I'm doing it is, at a higher caliber for the right reasons and seeing what's going on, because we do talk to a lot of people that are in distressed situations. And some of those conversations are really hard. I'm an empath, so I really feel for people when they're in pain. And when there's things that are going on, I feel for them. Okay, cool. What can we do to help you out of this situation? And yeah, maybe it might not hit our pocketbooks to make us feel good, but I think it makes me feel good on the inside, just maybe even a little bit more, just being able to do the right thing.
Dude, I got one more story for you guys too, just because I think this is very pertinent. And here's where the monetary value example comes in, right? So the property Z and I just locked up. For those of you who are just joining, Z's my partner, and we fix and flip in San Antonio, Texas. And we just locked up a property like last week or a week and a half ago. I was out there locking it up. But it was one of the gentlemen I cold called. In fact, I have the first video, I'll share it, but he pretty much told me to mind my own business and stop snooping around his business, right? But he called me back and he said that he is looking at selling his house. And so when we started talking about price. And, at the first price he mentioned was he wanted $86,000 for his property. And I was like, shit, sold. I'll buy it for 86,000, right? And then we hang up, and he goes and he does his due diligence, right? And he finds out what his property is worth, and he comes back and he's like, hey, you know what? I found out what my property is worth, and it's worth like, $230,000. Okay. And I'm like, yeah. I go, okay, cool, man. I go, how did you come up with that number? I just was curious. And he told me he came up with it because he looked at like the property tax records and started looking a little bit around. And I was like stoked that he was doing his homework, and I just told him, I said, I go, I can't give you $230,000 for your property because it just doesn't make sense to me. I said, this is what I can give you. I said, but, and he was like, oh, well, I'd like to get more. And I'm like, look, I can't give you any more, but what I can do is I can help you. If you want to get $200,000 and some for your property, I will help you weed through the little knuckleheads out there that are trying to promise you everything. And I will help you get to that amount of money, because I don't care if you sell it to me or not. I just want you to be happy. And I want to be able to help you because I do know this game, And he was like, dude, that's really cool. Okay, cool. I'll keep that in the back of my mind. I said, great. 2 days later, he sends me a text message. He's like, I got a deal for you. And I'm like, let me call him up. I'm like, yo, David, what, because his name's David. And I go, David, what do you mean you got a deal for me? He's like, I'll take this amount of money for it. And he goes, and I'll sell it to you. And I was like, what? And he comes down quite drastically, right? And I was like, dude, that's amazing. That is amazing. I said, I will buy it from you. And when I went there and I talked to him as we were signing documents, and after we signed documents, I just asked him, I said, hey man, why me? Like I didn't meet your number. You knew I couldn't do that. And he's like, in all honesty, man, and this is true. Anybody's out here listening, this is true. He's like, I'm just tired of cutting the grass. I'm older. I don't want to have to upkeep my house anymore. And he's like, dude, you're a straight shooter. He's like, I got a good feeling from you. I felt like you were just being honest with me. You didn't have to go ask anybody else if you could buy this property or not. You were actually the buyer on it. And he's like, you didn't tell me I got to go talk to my manager or whatever. And he's like, and I just felt like we were on the same wavelength. And I was like, cool, man. Hell, dude, that's great. But if I think that things would have been different if I was greedy and I was selfish and not wanting to help, and not putting him first, So I think for me, I think the universe pays you back, for doing acts of good or treating people like people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people kind of miss that sense where you are talking to people. It's not a paycheck, right? So even if it's wholesaling or like long-term rentals, I'm finding out it's like, oh, let me just like keep raising the rents and just like kick, like if they can't afford it, then just kick them out and just get somebody else who could afford it. It's like, yeah, there's some, like, there's a balance, right? Like you definitely need to be a profitable business, but at the same time, like these are people's lives that you are affecting by doing transactions, right? So keeping that in mind and just like be a personable human being. And then that way, I mean, like when you have that mentality, like we could all rise. It's not just about money all the time. You could actually just have a thriving and prosperous business while helping others and while benefiting their livelihood as well.
Yeah. So if you're starting out in real estate, don't be greedy, man. Don't be greedy. Like there's enough of the pie to go around for everybody. I'm a firm believer of that. I like sharing. I like collaborating. I like teamwork. I think that you get paid. You'll get paid back in spades. And I go, and if you're already doing deals and doing projects and you're looking for people to come in and help you scale your business, either by lending you money or, lending you their time to cold call or whatever, like, dude, bring along people that you want to like help out as well. Like I like to help friends out. Like if I know friends are looking at trying to make some money, or they're sitting on some money and they want to make money, like, dude, I'm going to offer that to them first, because I'd rather see us grow together and help people out, that I know and I see on a daily basis, and then help others people out that are interested. But, the bottom line is, I think you just got to be kind and want to help people do better in life. Anyways, I know that I've taken you guys past the hour mark, man, and I appreciate it. But is there anything that you guys have to add before, like, we say adios?
I do. It was something we talked about right before we got kind of deep with the like free foreclosures and everything. And I wanted to bring up Dan Sullivan's book, Who Not How. It was kind of talking about is wholesale easy, right? But like on how we were doing things. It really comes down to the who, not the how. So that's why I went the team route, right? So what kind of value can I bring? What is it that I'm good at versus trying to learn things that I may not be good at? Like I will not be an integrator, like I'm not tech savvy. I'm not like the greatest at putting things together. Like I'm with somebody who is phenomenal with an amazing background. And, I would not be not even remotely near the volume that I'm doing right now without someone like that. So it's like putting the right people in the right places for the right things, right? So maybe I don't want to, my value of my time is not going to be for cold calling somebody and dealing with all that stuff. I excel at having conversations when it's further down the finish line to get things done and closing deals. So it just comes down to like, what is it you're good at, and go for it. Find people that are better at other areas and fill in those gaps. That's why our team has expanded. It's because finding those people that are ready to go into certain spots and really good at what they do. And when everybody's doing their job together, it goes up. So, everybody wins. So that's a big thing. I was thinking about that there for a minute when you guys were talking. But if you guys haven't read the book, Who Not How, Dan Sullivan, give it a read. It's a great one, and then read it again. So,
dude, that's a good thing, man. Is that your number one book recommendation?
I mean, I've got quite a few.
Pimp one more, dude. Pimp one more. Pimp one more.
Bro. I mean, you already talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. There's different avenues I was trying to go. How to build wealth. There's self-storage, like storage units and that kind of stuff, and like figuring different things out. Like I love chess. And so when I'm thinking about things, I'm already like 3, 5, 7 steps ahead from where I'm actually at in reality. So like putting things out there of like how to get to different places, that's how my mind works. Like it's like an engineer brain kind of a situation where it's like, okay, so this is how this works, and that's what I want to do. So yeah, I mean there's just a lot. Like yeah, I don't know.
Nice, bro. And then how can people find you and get in contact with you to bring you deals or ask for help or just reach out and get to connect with you, man?
I actually have a link, like a JV link. I just basically, I always keep it on my phone whenever I go to meetups, and I just use the Blink card, and on there it'll say JV with Sean. And then we have a couple different options for, how they want to do it. If they are going to have a buyer for the deal, if they are the buyer for the deal, or if they want us to lock it up and then find the buyer for them. There's multiple avenues for them to go. But if you've got a good qualified lead and you're just having trouble closing it, send it my way. I'll love to take it down for you and get things going. I just got a check on Monday for my biggest deal. We did a turnkey novation. We locked up a property at $400,000 that the person didn't want to deal with a realtor or anything like that. Sold it within 3 days, cash buyer, $495. So, after our fees that went up, we took home right about $54,000. The JV person got, I think it was $15,000 for nothing. They didn't even have to touch the lead. They just brought it from us from a list. So, they got a good chunk of change just for kind of bringing the lead to us. So if you guys want to do something like that, let me know.
Dude, nice, bro. Nice. So Brandon, tell me, dude, what's your book recommendation, bro?
I was trying to think about it because I'm always in and out of books. So I'm like, I see some book and I'm like, oh, I want to read that. Then I bounce around. But I think like for some reason for me, it's not even really like a philosophical book, but Cash Flow Quadrant for some reason just resonated with me, because when you talk about like the employed side, self-employed side, business side, and then the investor side of things, it just kind of makes you orient your business so that you're not constantly in the self-employed side. So I really like that aspect of just, okay, how do you operate? Because wholesaling is a business. So how do you operate your business without being the single point of failure? So I would say take a look at that if you haven't read that.
All right, cool, man. And how can people get in contact with you? I got your Instagram handle right here, bro. Thomas100. But how can people get in contact with you if they want to bring you a deal or sort of figure out a little bit more on how they can connect with you, maybe join a team with you or whatever?
Yeah, for sure. So there's my Instagram handle. You can feel free to send me a DM, or you can go on my Facebook page. It's Brandon with X as an X-ray, and then Thomas. You can find me on there. I'm probably going to change the profile page, but it'll have a lot of jets flying around because I used to fly jets. So that's another reason. That's another way. Or you could send me a text. We'll see where this goes, but 818-940-1421.
Love it.
This guy, he's daring. He's daring.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, dude.
Yeah.
Nice.
Lance, I'll have you post my JV link when this kind of goes out, and we can get in contact with people. Another one, I was thinking, another book. Have you guys read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss?
No, I haven't read that one yet, man.
Oh man, it's great. It's a master negotiator and figuring out how deals are done, and it's one of the coolest like books for someone that's trying to close deals and stuff. And it's awesome. So
dude, that's awesome, bro. I will say this. My two book recommendations is the original that started off for me was Rich Dad Poor Dad. That took me down the rabbit hole and got me to where I am today. If it wasn't for that book, for many real estate investors out there, I don't think we'd all be where we are, because that I think is the OG grandfather book to read. But the other book that I'm sort of reading right now that really resonating with me is Your Next 5 Moves. And you were sort of talking about looking at 7 moves ahead. And Patrick Bet-David is the author of Your Next 5 Moves. And that book has just really sort of helped me gain a little bit more clarity in my business that I looking at scaling and growing and sort of, how to do that. So anyways, you guys know how to get in contact with me. Like Sean said, I'll go ahead and leave all their links in the show notes on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever this gets posted. I'll make sure that all of that stuff is on there. And I just want to say thank you to these guys for coming on and sharing their time, their knowledge, some tips and tricks for you guys out there that want to get involved. And like I said earlier, it's about the kind of people that you surround yourself with. These are people I talk to on a daily basis here. And I love bouncing ideas off these guys. I love talking to them. I feel good when I talk to them because it brings me up and we talk about the same kind of shit because we're passionate about it. So, I look forward to seeing their journeys as well and for all of us to grow together. So anyways, I'm going to sign off. You guys, thanks again. And don't go anywhere as I end this bad boy, man.
Thanks, Lan.